the most powerful man on earth, sat down to over 100 dishes a night, and by his own rules, he couldn't let anyone see which one he liked. Inside the Forbidden City, a known favorite was a known way to kill him. A poisoner only needed to learn one thing, which dish the emperor reached for twice. So he ate like a man handling a live weapon. This dinner wasn't a luxury, it was a daily security operation, and the food was the smallest part of it. Let's walk through the machine that was really eating with him. Start with the org chart, because the paranoia was built in before a single pot was ever lit. Running the emperor's food was the job of the Imperial Household Department, the Wufu, and inside it, the Imperial Kitchen, the Yushanfang. More than 200 people, officials, cooks, and eunuchs, and their entire assignment was feeding one household. Now here's the detail that gives the whole thing away. The Qing rulers built that department on purpose to keep eunuchs away from real power, because they had watched the dynasty before them rot from the inside. Under the Ming, a single eunuch, Wei Zhongxian, gathered enough control to rival the throne itself. The Manchus took Beijing in 1644 and decided that would never happen to them. So they handed the running of the palace to bonded servants they could own and discipline, and one emperor, Kangxi, cut the number of palace eunuchs down to around 800. Think about what that means. Before anyone worried about poison in the soup, the people cooking the soup were already treated as a managed security risk. And this department was far more than a kitchen with a budget. The Wufu was a commercial power in its own right, running trade in jade, ginseng, salt, and furs, and managing imperial workshops and estates across the country. It generated a large share of the wealth that paid for the emperor's private world, so the same institution that rationed his bites of duck was also out earning the money that put the duck on the table in the first place. And that kitchen was not one room with a few cooks. It was a small industrial operation split into specialized workshops. One handled roasting, one handled pastries and sweets, one handled rice and staples, and each was run by staff who trained for years on a narrow slice of the job. A single ingredient could pass through the hands of a dozen people before it ever reached a plate. Everything was written down too. The palace kept meticulous dining archives, dish by dish, day by day, and it is those surviving records that let us stand here now and describe what a dead emperor ate for breakfast 3 centuries ago. Even the plates were a matter of law. The emperor's tableware was reserved imperial yellow, a color the throne kept for itself, and a commoner caught eating off it could be punished for the offense. Now look at what that staff had to move every single day. The daily allowance written into the palace books for one emperor ran to roughly 20 catties of meat, about 24 pounds of it, plus 5 more catties of soup meat, 2 whole sheep, 5 chickens, 3 ducks, roughly 60 radishes, piles of other vegetables, and, in the Manchu style, close to 100 catties of milk a day, turned into cheese, milk cakes, and butter tea. That is the intake of a small village routed to one man. And here is the strange part. The emperor only ate 2 real meals a day. Breakfast in the morning, dinner in the early afternoon, the old Manchu rhythm, with snacks in between. He might start the day at dawn with a bowl of rock sugar bird's nest, just to settle his stomach. But he could call for food at any hour of the day or night. And when the emperor called, food had to appear at once. The order was relayed down a line of eunuchs, and the dishes were carried to him in covered boxes, sealed and tagged, so nothing could be swapped on the way, wherever he happened to be. Which meant the kitchen kept meals finished and waiting, kept warm over low stoves for hours, just in case. Most of it he would never even see. That waste was designed in. It was simply the price of a man who could never once be told to wait for his own kitchen. When a meal was finally served, the numbers turned theatrical. The standard imperial spread in the Qing court ran to around 120 dishes, laid out across several tables. No human being could eat 120 dishes, and that was never the goal. The whole table was a flat display of reach. A eunuch would announce each dish by name as it was set down, dozens of them, one after another. And forget the image from the television dramas of the emperor dining cozily with his consorts. By the rules, the emperor usually ate alone. Some emperors found even 120 dishes excessive and cut it back. The count fell to 64, then to 32, and during one stretch of regency, all the way down to 24. Then Empress Dowager Cixi took hold of the late Qing court and shoved it straight back up past 100 dishes a meal at an estimated cost of at least 200 taels of silver for a single sitting. Hold on to that number, because we're going to come back to what 200 taels was really worth. For now, just keep the picture in your head. A table carrying 100 dishes, and a man who is about to be physically stopped from enjoying most of them. Because before he could touch a thing, the food had to clear security. Every dish went through 2 checks. First, a eunuch set a thin strip of silver into the food, or laid a silver tag across the dish, and watched for the metal to darken. Silver, everyone believed, would blacken the instant it met poison. Second, a taster, almost always a eunuch, ate a bite of every single dish in front of the emperor and waited. Only then did the man at the center of it all pick up his chopsticks. Now here is what makes this so good. That silver test was mostly theater. Silver reacts with sulfur, not with pure arsenic, and arsenic was the poison everyone feared most. Old arsenic was often crude and laced with sulfur, so now and then the plate really did darken and the belief held. But a clean, refined dose would have slid straight past the silver without a mark. The most feared checkpoint in the entire palace was, chemically speaking, half superstition. The human taster was the real insurance, and everyone standing downstream of that meal knew it. That taster was the true tripwire in the whole system, and his own life was the wire. And here's the twist that all of this protection produced. By the time a dish reached the emperor, it had been finished early, kept warm over a stove, carried across a vast palace under cover, checked with silver, and tasted by a eunuch. Fresh and hot were the first 2 things sacrificed. The most heavily guarded meal on the planet was more often than not a lukewarm one. The single most powerful palate in the empire spent its whole life eating food that had been sitting, and that brings us to the rule at the dark heart of the whole system, the one that turns a fancy dinner into something closer to a hostage protocol. The emperor was not allowed to eat more than 3 bites of any single dish. 3, and the plate was quietly pulled away. The rule existed for exactly one reason, and that reason was security. You didn't need to poison every dish to kill an emperor. You only needed to find the one dish he loved and poison that. So his own tastes were treated as a state secret, hidden from his own cooks. The eunuchs watched him without pause. If he lingered on a dish, if he so much as looked at one a beat too long, a eunuch would move it within reach and spoon out a portion for him so that no pattern of favor could ever be read off his face. Cixi ran the exact same discipline decades later, refusing more than 2 or 3 bites, even of the dishes she loved most, precisely so that no one could ever aim at her taste. Sit with how strange that is. The most powerful person in the empire could command armies and rewrite the law, and could not admit out loud that he liked the duck. If you're into the hidden machinery behind dynastic wealth and power, subscribe, because pulling apart systems like this one is the whole channel. Now, let's follow the food the emperor never touched, because this is where the story gets even stranger. While we're clearing up myths, let's kill the biggest one. When people picture an imperial Chinese feast, they picture the Manchuhan banquet, that legendary marathon of 100+ courses. The truth is that the full Manchuhan banquet was largely a later invention, a restaurant showpiece and an occasional gimmick, not the emperor's everyday reality. The daily machine we've been walking through was stranger and far more disciplined than the fantasy version. So what happened to 100 dishes after one man ate a few bites of a handful of them? Almost none of it hit the trash. The first tier was reward. The emperor's leftovers were passed down the hierarchy as a mark of favor to consorts, to princes, to ministers. A dish sent from the emperor's own table carried real weight. It told you, in front of everyone, that you mattered and people treasured it. Consorts then passed their leftovers down again to maids and to eunuchs. But bestowing food like that was occasional, and the daily volume pouring out of that kitchen was enormous. So the rest went out the back. Eunuchs and palace staff ran a quiet, thriving trade, selling the emperor's leftover food out of the Forbidden City to restaurants and street vendors who then sold it on, marked up, as literal imperial cuisine. By some accounts, that trade grew into a supply chain, feeding thousands of people beyond the palace walls. So the machine didn't only feed the emperor, it fed a whole hidden economy, running on the simple fact that he could never finish his own dinner. And when the Qing court wanted to show off what the machine could really do, it cooked for thousands in a single sitting. In 1785, the Qianlong Emperor threw a banquet at the Qianqing Palace so enormous it became legend, the banquet of 1,000 elders, packing the halls with roughly 3,000 aged guests brought in from every corner of the empire to eat with him. One of those guests was a French missionary named Joseph-Marie Amiot, who left a first-hand written account of the day, which is part of how we know it happened at all. The very same apparatus built to guard a single plate now fed a hall of thousands from bubbling silver hot pots in one coordinated sitting, and the money underneath all of it was staggering. Palace records price one class of court banquet at roughly 4.43 taels of silver per table setting. That single figure was several months of income for an ordinary household at the time. And Cixi's 100-dish dinners ran to 200 taels a sitting, day after day, most of it never touched. So here is what the emperor's dinner was really announcing to everyone in that room. It had almost nothing to do with eating well, because any wealthy man in the empire could do that. What the table announced was that he commanded a machine so vast it could make one meal impossible to poison, impossible to predict, and impossible to copy, and could then turn around and feed 1,000 old men the next morning without missing a beat. The food was never the flex. The machine was. And if 100 dishes a night sounds excessive, wait until you see what the same court was willing to spend on a single funeral.